Oh, welcome to the Iowa blog. We are here today with a full cast of characters. We have two people, however, on the Carmel coast. I think that is the cocktail tree. That's the artistry that we have been fighting over for those who don't know. But there you go, off the top, that beautiful painting was painted by the man who is sitting beneath it. That is Captain Kirk. It was Kevin, who just moved out of the way for you to be able to see it. And down below is JB. He's also figured out how to make the backdrop the last painting of Captain Kirk. The story here, for those that don't know, and it was a bitter fight that I lost. I won the vote. I won the vote by a landslide. I did staff the ballot box. I started off with Wookie and Asher voting in my favor. And then Wookie, of course, has Rich around his paw. So I got Rich's vote.
I abstained. I gave my vote to Wookie.
Yeah, okay. Well, Wookie voted for me. Yeah, and it was like a clean sweep there for a while. And when the deal was that I offered to buy that painting because it brings back memories to me. I just loved the Carmel coast and those old gnarly cypress trees and the ocean that came against the coast. Now, you pictured it on the one clear day every year. So that really is unfair. But nonetheless,
take pictures.
Yeah, I do. I do recall that. And I just love the flowers and the old gnarly tree and the character of the whole thing. And so I asked Kirk, who's been my friend now for almost 20 years, if I could buy the picture from him. And he said yes. And I said, okay, here's what I want to do with it. I want to pay you for the picture and I want to pay to have it framed. And then I want you to put the picture in your studio so that it's the backdrop for this show. So I got to enjoy it. You get to enjoy it. And I thought that was just a great plan. I was going to feel really good about being able to see this picture regularly because I love it. And And I was going to have my good friend be able to keep something that he created that's a real treasure. Except for the fact that Kirk didn't like those terms. Kirk decided that he wanted to give the picture to me. And so I decided anyway, that I'd hold a contest and that we would put it up for vote. And so I did on the Facebook site, and it got quite the response. And I was really doing great with the response, and it was almost a clean sweep. Before you finally chimed in, it was like 8-0, and soon it was like 20-2. But then your wife decided that she would clip us all, and I just gave up. She said, "Take the damn picture, Kirk." My husband is well hung all around our house. And with that, the debate was over. With that, I just surrendered and I said,
no contest.
Possessions 90% of the law. Remind me never to engage in a debate with Sylvia. So there we have it. Who knows what's going to happen with the picture other than Sylvia's the one who is going to decide.
The boss decide.
That we know, and I get to enjoy it as the backdrop. I can't draw a stick man. So for a guy that can't draw a stick man, I can't carry a tune in a bucket, and I can't draw a stick man. And so to see something this beautiful that captures something that was really important to my youth. I mean, that first time I got a car, the first thing I did is I headed up the Carmel coast. I loved the town of Carmel. I loved that whole coast. I played golf poorly, but nonetheless I thought that Pebble Beach was the ideal golf course, and so I loved Pebble Beach. I loved the lodge there. To me, that was as romantic as it gets. So that's the story of the picture. All right, well, it was an interesting couple of days. I had to confess that I'm not much of a Charlie Kirk fan. I don't listen to very many people in social media. The few that I listen to are highly technical experts on subjects that I have an interest in. Like I like to know what's really happening in the U.S. proxy war against Russia. And I listen to people who are experts in this because I think it is one of the great deceptions of our time, a government deception that's virtually worldwide, where 90% of people are misled, and it is leading to nuclear confrontation and the destruction of the earth. And so that's a subject that I'm interested in. So I'll listen to the people who know a lot about what is going on there. But Charlie Kirk is not someone I would ever listen to. He was right about a number of subjects. I've subsequently listened to maybe an hour of various things that he said, and he was right about Islam being a great threat to the world in the United States. He was right about Marxists being violent and being a threat, and their combination of Marxist Muslim violence to the U.S. I think he's absolutely right in that. He was one of the few people that spoke out against America sending weapons to kill Russians in Ukraine. I don't know if you fellows know this or not, but the numbers on that, Trump has just lied miserably, saying that the Russians lost millions of people and that and they're losing hundreds of thousands a week and this sort of thing. The actual numbers on that war are that the Russians have lost about 135,000 troops, with about 2/3 of that in the first month or so when the Wagner Group was using criminals. The Wagner Group got criminals out to fight, and they weren't very skilled at what they did. And since that time, since they were disbanded and the Russian military has taken over, the Russian casualties have been very low, and 135,000 all total, with half of them in the first month of the war or more. The Ukrainians, by contrast, have lost 1.8 million. 1.8 million. And they're losing in the range of 30 to 35,000 a week now, to between desertion, severe casualties, and death. And the whole thing is completely falling apart. You could give the Ukrainians the best weapons in the world, and there's no one to wield them anymore. And the Russians are just moving slowly because really all the Russians wanted was the ethnic regions in the east of the Ukraine. They've captured those. They will eventually capture Odessa to have the clean sweep of the eastern part of Ukraine and the area around the Black Sea. And they will only go over the Dnieper River if the only way to end the war is to take down the really disgusting regime that is in Kyiv. Yeah. So otherwise, they have no interest in Western Ukraine. They have no interest in invading Europe. Although if the Germans and the Poles and the Finns and the French and the Brits continue to be this belligerent, they actually send troops. If they send weapons that are actually deployed and killed Russians inside of Russia, then I think Western Europe will be flattened. If they just stand down, Russia has no interest in them. And I speak very harshly of this because the proxy war in the Ukraine is an American plot, and the man that is most guilty of it is Lindsey Graham, the senator. And it is to come up with an immoral plot to kill Russians using a proxy and to have 1.8 million of them die and then blame the victim, I just think is stunningly reprehensible. And, Trump is no better than Biden in this whole thing. So he has become completely and totally useless. So I'll study that. So it's a long way to go around to say, I didn't listen to Charlie Kirk. Mm-hmm. But I have listened to a few things he did say. And as I said, he was right about the Ukraine war. He was right about Muslims. He was right about Marxists. He was right about wanting to release the Epstein files. But I have a question that no one seems to want to deal with. Man was married. He had 2 kids. I think they were both daughters. But a young daughter, certainly one young daughter. And I think he had 2 kids. I just saw a picture of a studio. There's only one picture in his studio, one portrait of a single person.
Him?
It's not his wife. It's Donald Trump.
Oh, wow.
Donald Trump. The day that he was assassinated, he was out handing out MAGA hats. How can a man claim to be moral, claim that he values his daughters and his family above all, and he's serving a known convicted rapist
Oh, really?
and serial pedophile? I mean, seriously, what's wrong with that? And why would you fly such a man on Air Force Two and talk about taking the flags down to half-mast when he is serving a pedophile and a rapist who is a habitual liar and exceedingly destructive? How is that even possible? Why would people be so devoted to someone who would do that? Now, I heard him go to college campuses and they give him lots of credit because they say he defended Israel. He did defend Israel until he didn't.
Yeah.
He did until he didn't. And at the last 6 months, he was a vile voice of anti-Semitism. He was blaming Jews for all manner of things. In fact, he just basically said that everything that's wrong in America is the fault of Jews.
Beg your pardon?
Yeah. He says it's liberal Jews that are funding everything that's wrong in America. And he went down in a laundry list and he says it's all because of liberal Jews. He went so far as to say that the Islamic invasion of Israel on October 7th was a plot by Benjamin Netanyahu so that he could survive the liberal protests for judicial reform. He didn't know the term judicial reform. He actually said that Netanyahu was superseding the Constitution, didn't know that Israel didn't have a constitution. And he didn't know that liberals in Israel represent 20% of the voters and right-wing candidates and the center are 80%. So he didn't know that they were never a threat to him. And he actually said that October 7th attack was a plot by Netanyahu because he wanted a war to overcome the threat of judicial reform. That is not a pro-Israel voice. And yet Israelis are pretending like, oh, wow, he was the greatest thing, man. He's a righteous guy.
Right.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're that desperate? Listen, I'm a man who used words doesn't deserve to be killed for his words. But he made a big deal about preaching his Christianity. Mm-hmm. And as we know, Jesus never existed. Mm-hmm. Everybody who promotes that religion is taking souls with them to Sheol. And that's repulsive. His wife is dangling a rosary out the car window on the way to Air Force Two to fly the casket back to Phoenix. And people are now painting pictures of him with angel wings and with a halo. And there's moments of silence at sporting events for this integration of religion and politics and social media influencers. When a social media influencer who preaches religion and extreme right-wing politics garners that kind of attention and that kind of position, it speaks very poorly of his audience. Now, the reason I brought all of this up is because on all the social media platforms, the number one theme was that the Israelis had schemed to kill him because, well, the number one topic in social media is blame the Jews. Mm-hmm. X is rife with it, but they're all bad. But X is the worst. X is a anti-Semitic cesspool. And you can say, there's no chance that Israel is going to do this. Now, Israel, unfortunately, just like they love Trump, they love those they shouldn't, but they loved him. No, Israel didn't do that. And it was obvious, but it was all over the place. And then it was an international conspiracy. And then it was, well, it had to be a professional shooter. And they had all their analytics up there that it had to be a professional shot. No, the kid missed his target by a foot or more. Nobody in their right mind shoots for the neck.
Neck, right.
If you're really good at what you do, you shoot right between the eyes. If you're really, really good at what you do. And if you're really crappy at what you do, even though it's only 200 yards, you make a body shot.
Shoot for mass.
Right. Shoot right in the, well, you could be a foot off here and it doesn't matter. And if he was shooting here, he was a foot off. If he was shooting here, he was a foot off. He was shooting a 30-06, an old Mauer, basically, ancient military rifle or hunting rifle, deer rifle, a 30-06.
Yeah.
And the reason he was exposed to these guns is because his dad was a cop. He was a sheriff for 27 years. And most of his extended family were military. Kid's parents were Republicans. The kid was quite liberal because he wrote on his bullet that he was going out to kill a fascist. And this thing of Marxists calling people fascists is just reprehensible. It's just disgusting because, first of all, Hitler was a Marxist.
Yeah.
Stalin was a Marxist. Mao was a Marxist. Lenin was a Marxist. Marxists are responsible for killing 200 million people. Marxism has only been around, 100 or so years and killed 200 million people. There's never been anything as lethal as Marxism in that short a period of time. I mean, Islam still has the high game score, at least 250 million dead attributed to Islam. So it's still the most lethal thing that man has ever created. But
It's been around a lot.
Marxism has been around 1 century versus 14 centuries. Although, 80% of those that Muslims killed was in the first century. So, the first century of both of them was 200 million. So they're equally lethal. And they're the two things that are together today to bring the world to its knees. And the world doesn't understand that you've taken the two most lethal doctrines and you brought them together. Now, any time that a socialist, a Marxist, labels their enemy a fascist, they have no idea what they're talking about. Fascism and socialism are the same thing. Different name for the same thing. Hitler was a Marxist before he was a fascist. Mussolini was a Marxist before he was a fascist. They didn't want to, they wanted a way to differentiate from the people they didn't like. They were the same as the people they didn't like, but then they needed a way to differentiate themselves from it. And the way they did it is they called themselves something different. And Mussolini was the first, and he had, all of these godlike images of himself. And Hitler said, "Hey, I could buy into that. That's my thing. It fits me perfectly. I'm a fascist too." But it's the National German Socialist Workers' Party. And both exist under exactly the same principle, which is there's one dictatorial control mechanism, all power over people's lives, what you can do, what you can say, where you can live, everything's controlled, top down. Your religion, your politics, your livelihood, your speech, everything is controlled in a socialist and fascist government. And yet in both governments, even though most industries are nationalized, both in socialism and fascism, in both of them, there are exceptions for those who are most loyal to the party. Mm-hmm. that they can still own their own property and their own businesses, as opposed to communism, where the government owns everything. But Marxism and socialism, the same thing economically, the same thing politically. It's just a different name to the same thing. And so for this kid to call Kirk a fascist means that he was an extreme liberal, even though he was raised in a Republican household with a father that was a cop. Mom was a social worker. And so my point is that Tyler Robinson is America. When Elon Musk and others lashed out and said, if they want to kill us, we need to fight back. And I kept on posting all day, there is no they.
Yeah.
This was a young boy. He's 22 years old. He's a twerp. He's living still in mom's basement on a little twin bed with boxes underneath it and a plastic chair for his computer. He had no job. He dropped out of college. He was in a trade school to be an electrician. He is the average kid today. No judgment, enraged, angry, willing to speak out against anyone, in love with his own opinions, using the ad hominem fallacy. He said that, and his family supported his thing, that Kirk says hurtful things. Criticize them. If you want to say you don't like his stance on Marxism, then try to justify Marxism.
Yeah.
You don't like his stance on Islam? Read my damn books. You don't like his stance on Christianity? Read my books and use it against him. Then you could debate him. But don't pretend that he says hateful things, then you do something hateful. You're a damn hypocrite, which is the problem with Marxism. They claim that they're enlightened and they're ignorant. They claim that they hate, and yet they're the most hateful people going. They're as hateful as Muslims. And so the realization that Tyler was America, there is no answer for that. There's 100 million more like him. There is no answer for this. And the more you try to perpetrate one, the worse you're going to make it. Academia has already done its damage. And this is not university level. He only went to a college for one semester and then dropped out. This is strictly lower level academia. And social media. He is America. I'm sorry, but he is America. That's who they are. So now what are you going to do? There was a tragic announcement today of great consequence. I don't know if you guys saw it or not. MBS of Saudi Arabia had this huge conclave of I'm going to call them towel heads around him. The richest and most elite of the Muslims. And he began by saying that the provocation of Israel by attacking Qatar had to be responded by a unified strike and attack by Qatar and Saudi Arabia and all Islamic countries.
Ooh.
And that he would offer the full force of Saudi Arabia to hold Israel accountable without limitation. And that in addition to responding and punishing Israel for the bombing in Qatar, which took down one building, Hamas headquarters, Saudi Arabia wanted to control Israel and hold Israel accountable for genocide against their Palestinian brothers and destroying Palestine and Gaza. And he went on and on about the rogue Israeli state. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this, guys. Feel free to chime in. You can feel free to disagree with me if you think I'm wrong on any of this. I'm
Not so far.
happy to have the critique. In the last 4, 5, 6 months, I have doubled down on a position that I took the morning of October 7th of 23. That morning, we began to talk, and I began to write a letter that's called At War with Religion on behalf of Israel. My open letter as to, this is what I think you're going to do. This will be the consequence of what I think you're going to do. And this is what you should do instead. And it's a long letter. It's probably, 150 pages long? A lot of documentation, a lot of ideas. Mm-hmm. And turned out I was 100% accurate in predicting what Israel was going to do. That Israel was going to send the IDF into Gaza, and they were going to use bullets and bombs to destroy Gaza under the proviso that they were attacking and responding to Hamas, and that they would rid Gaza of Hamas. And that was the war goal. That's exactly what I predicted was going to happen. And when I said, since that is not possible, since you are now pursuing a war goal that is not possible, and you're fighting a symptom as opposed to the actual enemy, and you're using the wrong weapons, bombs instead of words, you're going to destroy Israel. You're going to make a bad situation worse in Gaza. There are going to be more jihadists by the time you're finished with your bombing and destruction than there were when you began. Not fewer, more, which is exactly what's happened. And that you could stay there for 1,000 years and you could never eliminate Hamas from Gaza, because Hamas is Islamic and Gaza is Islamic. And the more that you bomb Gaza, the more radicalized, or more extreme, I should say, the more good, more true the Muslims are going to be to the Quran. The more they're going to hate Jews. And this is exactly what's happened. But it's worse than just that, because by destroying Gaza and sacrificing some 700-800 IDF troops in the process, making a bad situation worse, what has Israel done? First, Israel's now put itself in a position where it's responsible for feeding the Muslims in Gaza who want to kill them. I can't imagine a country ever putting itself in a worse position than sacrificing the blood of its sons and its reputation worldwide, such that you destroy the homes of 2 million people, so that you're now responsible for feeding them, knowing that every one of them wants to kill you. You have to wear a flak jacket to kill them, to feed them. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they'll kill you. How could you put yourself in a worse position than that? And then not only are they forced to feed those who are trying to kill them and those that they have destroyed their homes, but they're being blamed for genocide while feeding their enemy.
Yeah.
That's quite a conundrum.
Oh, my, how could you put yourself in that bad a situation? And if once you're there, how could you allow that same government to be in charge? How could you continue to support Netanyahu when he put you in that position? And then the worst of all is that by doing this and having lost the war of public opinion, because Israel did a really crappy job of showing what happened on 10/7, they've still done a horrible job. By not doing that job well and losing the war, forfeiting the war on public opinion, Israel has put itself in a position where the entire world hates them. And now they go and they bomb Qatar to take out 5 or 6 lives. I don't care if those people live or die, but they chose to do this. And they turned Saudi Arabia, Qatar, which already hated them, but
Yeah.
now saying that they're collectively going to attack them.
Gave them the excuse. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Prompting.
Right. To control them, to attack them. You couldn't be in a worse position. Israel is so isolated. And they will say, well, but we have, Donald Trump in the White House, and America is, giving us more weapons, so America loves us. No, you don't get it. I finally heard someone, Scott Ritter is the person, for those of you who are interested in the Ukraine war, you'll know the name Scott Ritter. He is probably the most informed person in the world relative to how that war is being fought and how many lives are being sacrificed and where they are on the front lines and what weapons are being used. And really the fact that Russia has destroyed NATO and they beat Europe and they destroyed the credibility of the United States. Scott Ritter said something that I have said before, I have posted before, and I don't think anyone has ever responded to me based upon this, but I thought it was fairly profound at the time, and he is now the second person I've heard say this after I did. He said there's only really one way that you can interpret what the United States is doing relative to Israel, because Israel has turned the entire world against them, and Israel has isolated the United States in the Middle East to a significant degree because it's viewed as the country that arms this savage attacks on Gaza. And so he says there's only one explanation for it. And then he says, I can't give this credit to Trump because Trump's not that smart. But people like Trump are never in charge. And it's no one in Trump's cabinet administration that's smart either, so they're they're in charge. But there is between the CIA and the NSA and the financial leaders of this country and the military industrial complex, and this is something I've always been uncomfortable talking about in terms of who really runs the country. But the fact of the matter is there are people who have come up with a plan that are much smarter than Trump. And the plan, sadly, is to give Israel the bombs to destroy itself. They knew what Israel would do. They knew what Netanyahu would do. And they've continued to give him these massive bombs that he's using to destroy every habitation in Gaza. And it is suicide for Israel. There'll be nothing left of Israel as a result of all of this. 1 second, excuse me. Wookie would like you to know, though, he is wearing an Hermes. Let's see, if I go this way, yes. He is wearing this is a Hermes as opposed to an Hermes, but he is dressed. He is dressed for the show. And that he was groomed, got a haircut, Leah, and a bath, went to the spa, and put on his Hermes, and there he is. But he's now over in the Wookiee throne. He has a special throne that's in used to be my office, now the studio. So what he came to the conclusion, the same conclusion I had come to 4 months ago, because I was constantly told when I said Trump is the great betrayer back in November, as I announced this, that Trump is the great betrayer. He is going to betray Israel. And he's going to be the ultimate sponsor of the two-state imposition that will make Israel indefensible. And so in saying that, the retort from all of the pro-Israeli popular posters, but that's not true. Because look he's giving us so many bombs and weapons. And my retort even then was, you don't understand why. You're not only being played by the Muslims, you're being played by the United States. The Muslims who invaded on 10/7 Alaska flood. They were only trying to do one thing. You're not going to send 4,000 jihadists, mostly on foot, into Israel and conquer Israel, are you?
Really.
No. So why did they go in screaming Allahu Akbar, raping, torturing, plundering, burning, abducting, and killing? Why did they do that?
Antagonize them.
Well, aside
Why
from the
did
fun of it,
Yes,
Come get me.
yes,
Come get me.
yes. Why? Well, why did they do
The
that?
history of doing it.
Right.
Muhammad
They had a
Ali.
history of doing that. They did it to antagonize Israel because what did they want Israel to do?
Oh,
Okay.
come, yeah. Come
They wanted
bomb
Israel
Gaza. Come kill
to come bomb
Palestinians.
Gaza. And they
Yeah.
wanted lots and lots and lots of Muslims to die, and they wanted Israel to destroy Gaza. And they already had all of the resources already positioned in colleges, universities, and throughout the media. Qatar had already bought them,
Bottom. Mhm.
ready to say that before Israel even went to war in Gaza, that Israel was committing genocide.
Mhm. Yeah, they were still
That's what
lining
they
tanks
wanted.
up at the border. Yeah.
Right. That's what they wanted. Israel was played. They wanted Israel to invade Gaza and to destroy Gaza and to kill lots of Gazans. That's what they wanted, because that's the victory. Because if you do that, you turn the whole world against Israel. What happens when you turn the whole world against Israel? The fake Palestinians get their state.
Mhm.
Do they want a state carved out of Israel?
Oh,
Hell
yeah.
no.
They want the whole
They have
thing.
no interest. They've been offered a state carved out of Israel that's a lot larger than whatever they're going to get for a long time. They don't want a state carved out of Israel. They want the state of Israel. But they recognize, and you're playing with people whose average IQ is in the 70s.
Right.
I mean, so you shouldn't be able to be played for a fool by such fools. They realize that once the fake Palestinian state is given, and it will be Saudi Arabia that has the greatest influence over it, once it is given, then Israel is completely done. Because there won't even be 5 miles between the borders on both sides, and Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, where in that area 80% of Jews live.
Yeah. From the West Bank to Gaza, yeah, less than 5 miles.
Oh,
to
you're
the-
not going to have, 4,000 Islamic jihadists now from the north and the south and inside out. You're going to have millions of them.
Yeah.
And there is no fences that are going to be capable of resolving that. None.
Mhm.
It's
It'll be
just
like a zombie horde in a movie.
that is correct.
Climb
That's, and
over
that's
their
the way,
dead allies just to get to them.
and that's exactly as the prophets present it,
Mhm.
as tidal waves of terrorists. Exactly. So they played Israel for that result. And then the United States, these neocons in the United States have played Israel by giving Israel the bombs to do what they were baited into doing.
Yeah, we can make a buck off this. Let's go. Yeah.
Not only can we make a buck off of it, we can destroy Israel in the process. Because if Israel is gone, the United States doesn't have to take sides against any one of the Islamic countries who have what the neocons want: oil.
Yeah.
They want to control Iran. They want to control Saudi Arabia. They want to control the Middle East. And the thing that keeps them from having total control is their both British and American companies are too tied to Israel. Israel's gone. There's no more problems. The Trump administration, the neocons in America, and the Muslims both played Israel for fools. And Israel, as an independent Jewish state, will be no more. Now, while I know that at the end of the time of Israel's troubles, 8 years from now, there will be a remnant.
Mhm.
But Israel, as a independent Jewish state, the way it has been, is no more. It's over. They've passed the tipping point. World opinion, the insistence on a Fakistinian state, the Islamic states that surround them, they were too aggressive. They didn't fight this battle the correct way. And so I see Israel is now a country that we can fight for individual Israeli souls. We can fight for the souls of Jews. We can encourage them to walk away from the idiocy of the rabbis. Judaism, boy, I tell you what, when you listen to the statements that these people make, the feeds that were on my Facebook account, I probably put in 10 a day. And it's just astonishing how just tragically anti-Yahweh that religion is. They hate God.
Mm-hmm.
It is just repulsive what they have to say. And I can't imagine how God must feel to see his people wearing those little boxes and tassels and ribbons and morning suits and beanies and spouting such utter trash. But that's who they are. And so Israel, we can save some Israelis from Islam. We can save some and from Judaism and even for Christianity.
Mhm.
Because Christianity is exceedingly anti-Semitic and from Marxism. But we can't save Israel. It is a house divided and a house destroyed. And it is going to fall apart so fast over this next year. It's going to be almost dizzying what we're going to witness. Now, here we are. It's this family hour of the Yahweh blog, and we were going to pursue our understanding of Yeshaya, Isaiah 14, which happens to be about Halal ben Shakar, who happens to be the adversary. So it's not a happy subject, clearly, but it's an important subject. And we spent this entire time talking about the likes of what America has become, the hypocrisy of the MAGAs and the Charlie Herds or Charlie Kirks of the world, and now what is happening in Israel, as well as the march to World War III through the proxy war with Russia. But all the same subject.
Yeah, we're stating a problem, offer the solution. Yeah, correct. Everybody knows it's messed up. You know, we can look, anybody can watch it, regardless if you agree or disagree what you're seeing on those screens in front of you and how it makes, everybody will tell you what's messed up. We're the only ones offering the solution.
Right.
Yeah.
We can tell you why. We can even tell you why it's messed up.
Yeah.
When they can't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We know why it's messed up. We know how fast it is falling apart, and we have a solution.
Yeah.
And we also go ahead, Kirk.
No, I was just going to say there's a reason why the first condition of joining Yahweh's family or returning to Yahweh's family to walk away from religion and politics. My God, it's the death blow.
It is.
Start there.
They're all death cults. I mean, if you look at I'm looking over here. I really wore Wookiee out. That was way.
It's hard to play dress up.
Wow. So I told you he had a throne. There he is.
Uh-huh.
But he's in the library. You can tell him. He's got his reading material right there next to him. Yeah, Yahweh goes out of his way to tell us how much he dislikes religion and politics. He hates religion far more than politics, but he dislikes both. And both are deceptive. Both are misleading. Both are duplicitous, dangerous, destructive. And it's important that people know that is the case. And throughout everything that you witness today, God is the pretend God, the religious God, is interwoven through all of it. Mm-hmm. Oh, let's pray for Charlie's and his family. Let's pray for America. No. God didn't want to hear your prayers. Yeah. No interest in them.
You to pray.
No one asked you to pray. And if you're religious and you're not observing the Torah, if you're observing the Torah, you're not religious. He says, you look like you have dung on your face as far as he's concerned. So no, he's
Wow.
not listening. Doesn't want to hear from you, particularly if you're religious or you're overtly political or you're anti-Semitic. Oh my, are they out like wolves at a lamb convention? All right, gentlemen, unless we have something we want to add to this mess, we'll return to the story of Hasatan. The presentation of Hasatan is found in the 14th chapter of Isaiah, actually known as Yashaya. And we have made our way to the 9th verse of that statement. It opens actually with God telling his people, this is the positive alternative for you. And then it moves into a condemnation of religion and politics and an expose on Satan. One of the discoveries that I made very early in this process, this goes back now really 24 years ago. I was studying the Quran and trying to understand why the Quran was equal parts tributes to Satan. You know, the Quran says that all of Allah's messengers speak for Satan. The Quran has whole surahs that are devoted to demons, which are the jinn. Whole surahs devoted to them. We're told that the demons just love Muhammad and the Quran. And we find that Allah spends all of his time in hell, torturing people. So if he's spending all of his time in hell, you know who in the hell he is.
You would think.
Yeah, it's pretty damn obvious. And so as you're doing this and you're trying to understand why then there are surahs where Allah and Satan are having a conversation, and you really have a difficult time trying to figure out which one's Allah and which one's Satan, because their agenda is exactly the same. Man, exactly the same. There's whole long discussions, and they're repeated in numerous places, which is an arguments between Allah and Satan, and you really can't tell which one's which. So I just was confused this is going back 24 years ago, and I was confused. What is this argument between a God that is modeling himself after Satan and Satan? Why would a religion like Christianity criticize the Satan when it's pretty obvious that Paul created his God Jesus on behalf of Satan because he admitted he was demon possessed?
Yeah.
And his God is exceedingly anti-Jewish, hates Jews. So pretty obvious, but then it condemns Satan. So I was saying, why was that the case? And then was a friend that pointed me in the direction of Pike's Morals and Dogma of Freemasonry,
Yep.
32nd degree, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about religion from Satan's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And what it said was that Satan is saying, because as a 33-degree Mason, you are officially a Satan worshiper. And it said that Satan must destroy the adversary title to be perceived as a god.
Yeah.
And then you go to this statement and Yashaya 14, and now the whole thing falls into place and you understand it. The reason books like the New Testament, because by the way, the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms say very little about Hasatan.
Yeah.
He's a bit player. And Christianity is a big deal. And Islam, huge big deal. So why in these religions are they so fixated on disparaging Satan? What does Satan mean? What does Satan mean?
Hasatan, the adversary, yeah.
So, all right. So does Satan want to be known as the adversary?
Absolutely not.
No. And so the only way for Satan to succeed and to be perceived as a god or as a lord or as anything other than the adversary, as the devil, is for him to go and attack
Yep.
the adversary designation.
Mhm.
And that's exactly why Satan is besmirched by Satan in the Christian New Testament and throughout the Quran. Hasatan does not want to be known as the adversary, which is what the title means. He wants to be known as the Lord God. And that is what we're learning. The moment you learn that, then you understand Islam. You know who Allah is.
Mhm.
You understand his tactics. You understand who the Jesus Christ is of Christianity and why Paul was demon possessed to conceive it. It all falls into place. You understand who Hashem is in Judaism and Adonai in Judaism.
Yeah.
The Lord.
Yeah, the Lord replaces, and the name replaces Yahweh. This is Satan's ambition. Now, I went one step further, though, fellas, that is something I had not previously perceived. But the place that you actually learn the most about Satan is in the book of Ezekiel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so obvious that Ezekiel was inspired by Satan. It's got 25 ways to torture and kill Jews. That's the big theme of the book. And the first 2/3 of the book. It has 2 horrible rape scenes. Satan has a type. He likes rapists. That's why he picked Paul and Muhammad and Trump.
Yeah.
He likes sexual perverts. Hitler was a good example. And so it's obvious that is satanic. And then you see the 2 depictions of the alleged Lord in heaven, and it's Babylonian astrology. Clearly satanic. And so it became obvious to me the book was written by Satan. And then you have Satan actually confessed to it by talking about he projects himself back into Eden and how he thinks that God did him a low blow by decreasing his status from cherub to serpent. And then he puts himself on the rock of Tyre and talks about how glorious he is.
Mm-hmm.
He views himself as glorious. And
and how God made the wrong decision in the first place. How can you like these little mortal things better than shiny me? Yeah, that's forever.
That is correct. That is correct. Now I've always thought that while Malak and the Karub is a Malak, they have no free will. They're command and control segment. So I just figured that, okay, rebellion in the military where you have no free will is something you can still do. It's just there's the immediate consequence. Mm-hmm. You're imprisoned or they kill you or you're demoted. And that's what happened to Hasatan. So I said, okay, I don't have a problem with that. That makes perfect sense. And I'm, even to this day, I would say that's a valid conclusion. But when you read in Yeshaya that Yahweh admits, he says, listen, I created evil. I created it for purpose. And then you realize what the advantages are of religion. Like this conspiracy, Yahweh told us that this psychopath that we've had to deal with, that agreed with everything that we had written and said, and then to serve their own interest, they've now promoting the antithesis of what we concluded and what they agreed to. And now they're universally an antithesis of it. And are doing everything they can to try to destroy my credibility. Mm-hmm. And, so be it. I've learned that is not a bad thing. And that the reason God was so explicit in telling us about it in the Torah through the stories and Numbers was he wanted us to know that that's exactly what they did to Moshe. And that I should not only know that and expect it, but he said, this is how I want you to deal with it. And then God went on to say, here's the consequence of it. This metastasized from Numbers 11 and 12 into 13, 14, and 15. And what happens in Numbers 13 and 14? After the two meltdowns. The one where Moshe says, I want you just to kill me because they're this obnoxious. No one can stand these people. They're that abusive. Like the conspiratorial cult, and the way they decided they were going to turn and be so condemning is, God in Numbers 11 says, listen, I happen to agree with you, man. I torched the entire surround of this place. But I got a couple of guys. We're going to get this resolved in the end. All you're going to have to do is get them to the land, and I'll take it from there.
Got some guys.
And then you read, what they told God in Devarim 18, and they're saying, God, we never want to see you again. We never want to hear from you again. We never want to see you again. God couldn't deal with them. Right? God couldn't deal with Jews.
Yeah.
So we're being positioned for this kind of abuse because God wants us to know that is what's going to happen. That's who they are. But this time you can't back away. You've got to see it through. And then you get into Numbers 12, and now you have a despicable woman who was once part of the inner circle, Moshe's sister, and her brother coming and saying, we too speak for God, just as this contentious mother goddess cult has done, right? Mm-hmm. And you say, well, how could any of that be good? Because they didn't go off and just do their own little thing and worship Mother God. No, they have to spend almost all of their time trying to disparage me. Mm-hmm. The very person who taught them everything they know about the Torah and prophets and Yahweh. And to go to the opposite of everything that they previously held to be true. Yeah. And you say, well, how could that be good? Well, God clearly is allowing it, right? God clearly allowed it, and he warned us about it in Numbers 12. He said, this is what's going to happen to you. And by the way, this is my response. I'm covering her with leprosy, and I'm expelling her from the community. And oh, by the way, my last mention of her will be in Devarim. And in Devarim, I'm going to tell you the whole story of why I have divorced her, and it's over. So you'll never be part of anything associated with me going forward. The divorce is fine. Why could that be good? The same thing, the same reason that Satan serves a good purpose by being very bad. He was programmed to do exactly what he's doing. Why? Because God doesn't want a huge mob in forevermore.
Yeah.
He was happy with just Adam in the garden. He was happy with just Dod amongst his people. He was happy with just Koleb. You know, when it metastasized to the spies, God says, everybody over 40, you're dead, except those two guys. Everybody else, you're dead. So did God try to say, let me solve this problem? Let me see if I can make the family, put the family back together, fix this fractured family? No, he said, you're just all dead. I'm not going to even talk to you about it anymore. It's over. And then in 15, he presents the plan for 3,400 years later that he's going to use to restore that relationship. And so God's view was that rebellion served a purpose. It got rid of all the people he didn't want to spend eternity with.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's not unprecedented. He did the same thing with Noah. He said, okay, y'all are so bad, I can't stand you. So this is the only one who walked away, and he and his wife, we don't know much about his wife, and we don't know anything about his kids either, but at least they walked with him instead of walking with them. And he said, yep. It may sound cruel, but he wiped out all of them. He said, I'm going to start again with this group of people who trust me. Yes. And that's what he's doing now. I mean, I see it as just another, unfortunately, he has to weed them out every now and then and say, who wants to be with me?
Mm-hmm. How many religious prophets were there in the time of Elia?
Well, that story at 480.
Religious prophets, like 800 or 600?
Yeah, 400 and 450, 850.
Oh, okay.
Right, JB?
Yeah.
850, 400 and 450 between Baal and Asherah. How many were there at the end of that narrative?
I know that one.
0. So did Yahweh say, "Hey, I'm gonna fix this all up for you. We're gonna have a time of grace. We're gonna have forgiveness. All you need to do is believe, and it'll all be good. We'll be religious together. Kumbaya." Did he say that?
No, Elia ripped him a new one and they killed him.
No, it was He embarrassed them, he mocked them, and then he killed them.
Wow.
So what's the purpose of this mother goddess cult? What's the purpose of these anti-Jewish conspiracies? What's the purpose of Christianity and Judaism and Islam? It's the filter.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a cleanse.
Right. God's not looking to save everybody. He doesn't want everybody in heaven. He wants a way to get the herd so that it's just the people who get it, the people who share his views, the people who are committed to him, who love his name, who love his son, who've taken the time to listen to what he has to say and accept the house rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we have to look at what Hasatan does and these perverted conspiratorial, which is the mother goddess cult, religious or political mindsets that is so destructive. And we have to realize that God created that for a reason and that Satan is actually programmed to do that. So when it comes to this Torahless one, who is Donald Trump, and Satan's possession of Donald Trump, well, Donald Trump had free will, and he made this decision because he's such a despicable character, and he couldn't handle the fact he was losing every court case, he lost the election, and he was going bankrupt. So he made a deal with the devil consciously, and he knows he's demon-possessed. But Hasatan, he knows the future. You'd think, if anything, he would say, no, I'm just not going to do that. I mean, I've been asked the question before, if Hasatan knows that after he kills you as the anima para, that he is done, why doesn't he just avoid killing you? And then the children of Israel are not purged, and then it's all over, and Satan wins. All he has to do is not do what it says he's going to do. Why doesn't he do that?
He can't. He has to.
He can't. He can't. He has to do what he's programmed to do. He didn't have a choice when it came to Donald Trump, although clearly Donald Trump is his type, just like Paul and Muhammad and Hitler. It's his type. But he didn't have a choice.
That's probably enraging in itself.
Yes.
Knowing the answer, knowing that all I would have to do was not, and yet I can't not, it's there's got to be a little self-loathing in Hasatan from that.
No.
I think he embraces it.
No, and no. I don't think so. What is the common trait amongst all extreme narcissists and psychopaths? What is the one thing that they all have in common?
They love themselves.
Nope.
No?
Nope. They don't love themselves. They hate themselves.
They project their faults on others.
What was Charlie Kirk's pet peeve? You know what it was? He says, I hate the word empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my.
It was his pet peeve. I hate the word empathy. Now, the thing that all psychopaths have in common is
they don't have any.
They don't have any empathy. They have no concern for anyone, including themselves. Now, why did Trump go after the crocodile tears and my buddy and Charlie? He was killed. Then he went to the Yankee game, and he's all, hey, baby, doing the Trump shuffle and all smiles. Same day. Why? How?
Yeah.
Because he has no empathy.
Yeah.
And by the way, they don't love, a narcissist doesn't love themselves. They just hate everybody. All they care about is themselves, but they know they're despicable. And their only way to achieve what they want is to tear everybody else down. That's the same thing as Satan. So you can't say that Satan has this sense of loathing or any emotion. He doesn't. He's a tool.
Back to your children.
Yeah. You're just doing what he's programmed to do.
Yeah.
He provides the choice.
Yeah, well, yes, and what he doesn't have any.
No, but he provides a choice for humanity.
Yes, he does. He does, but he himself doesn't have one.
That's good.
So it is actually very helpful to understand the adversary, because then you understand how religions work, how politics works, what it really means to be demon-possessed like Paul, like Muhammad, like Donald Trump. And when I say they're demon possessed. Paul admitted he was demon possessed.
Yeah.
Muhammad admitted he was demon possessed, and they both acted demon possessed to confirm it. And Donald Trump, the difference between Donald Trump 45 and 47 is clearly demon possession. He has become the most despicable man on the planet.
If you follow suit with Muhammad and Paul, he's going to admit to it at some point.
Yes, he is. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, and what we don't know really quite is how Satan bridges this gap between claiming that his corporeal manifestation is God, Satan having absolutely no respect for the man that he's possessing, Satan programmed to be perceived as God, to fool people, to lure them away, to give them a false sense of security, and him being the adversary. And will that ever be disclosed that he is who he is, until he's finally unveiled at the end? I'm even wearing my Man from Edom and Adam of Parah. He comes dressed in red for the occasion. Yeah. So no, I think that throughout all of this, as we consider Hasatan, we have to realize that we're not up against somebody who is fighting us for any purpose or for to accomplish something. He's programmed to do what he does. And it's kind of like when I look at Judaism and I say, why can't you say Yahweh's name? Why do you have to do this? Everything is in Hashem or G-D or Adonai. And I realized that Satan's programmed. And so as he's working with the rabbis creating Judaism, he is specifically forbidden to use Yahweh's name. That's why Yahweh's name doesn't appear in the New Testament. That's why it doesn't appear in the Quran. God didn't want his name sullied in this way.
Right.
Amazing.
So there is a book, however, that we have to be careful about, because just because you include Yahweh's name doesn't mean you're right. If you exclude Yahweh's name, if you change Yahweh's name, you're definitely wrong. If you present Yahweh's name as the mother goddess cult is because you want to work mommy God into God's identity, that's dead wrong, and the consequences are unforgivable. But there is in the book of Ezekiel, well over 100 references to Yahweh's name. It's used all the time. And so I had to come up with a way of, this is not him. I came up with an initial for it as opposed to writing it, because I knew it was being used inappropriately. And so that is a place where you see the consequence of Satan using Yahweh's name and doing so inappropriately. So it's just like circumcision. It will exclude you from heaven as a man, but it won't necessarily include you.
Right.
And so not using Yahweh's name will exclude you from claiming correctly to speak for him. So renders the Talmud and the New Testament and the Quran false, but just using it doesn't automatically mean that you're right. Yeah, is the point. But the point I wanted to make is that Satan is not allowed to sully Yahweh's name in religious books like the New Testament, the Quran, or the Talmud. God doesn't want his name sullied in that way. There's a reason why it was so uncommon when we started this process, and we came to understand that Yahweh's name is Yahweh, and we came to understand why it wasn't in religion and why we had the responsibility of reintroducing it. It's because it wasn't sullied. It has never been sullied. Mm-hmm. So we can learn a lot by, I think, having a better understanding of who Satan is through this process. So it now says, and this is the passage that we were at in our last program. So we've done an hour and 10 minutes of this program, and we are now returning to where the program was supposed to begin.
Right on schedule.
We are right on schedule, aren't we, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Who was the one that was long-winded among the group?
Wookie.
Wookie.
Never shuts up.
Wookie's looking at me, wagging his tail. What I do?
What I do, Pop?
Sheol, hell, and Shaul, Paul, as the least desirable and most depressing alternative, are anxious in anticipation, indeed excited to summon and to meet you, announcing your arrival. And they have been alerted and are aroused to crush all of the departed souls of those who have been leaders and rulers of the earth. And the leaders of every nation and institution, and the most powerful and important people influencing every society, religiously, politically, and militarily, of Gentiles and their nations, have established their thrones and their positions of power. Yeshaya 14:9. Where did they establish their thrones and positions of power?
All over the earth.
No. Well, this says they did it in Sheol.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, when they're going there.
Yeah, that's
With
what it says. That every institution, every power player, every important individual, every person
result,
that
yeah.
influences societal influencers,
Mhm.
religiously, militarily, politically, all these Gentiles, they have established their seats and positions of power. And God says that Sheol, hell, is anxious to welcome you. So where did they establish their seats of power?
Sheol.
So, and when God uses coal, and he used it before these leaders, Kol Melech, would coal mean a few of?
All.
No, it's just all. It's all. And listen, Sheol is an inanimate object. It is essentially a black hole. It is a place where time exists forever, and all other dimensions are crushed to the point that they essentially cease to exist, where not even light can escape. And so the souls of those who have misled others, the souls of all of those who are political and religious and patriotic and societal influencers and all this, it says their souls, of the leadership anyway, are going to Sheol. And that Sheol is just delighted to have them. It's been anticipating their arrival. Their arrangements have been made, baby. Like I've told everybody, Donald Trump says he wants you to make a donation so he goes to heaven. And I said, no, I've already got a confirmed reservation for him in hell. It's the 24th of September, 2033. So nothing's going to change that confirmed reservation.
Yeah, just watch.
Hell is excited to receive these guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's been anticipating this for a long time. And so this is a indication of what God thinks of societal leaders. He said all of them.
Yeah.
So if you are a popular multi-million person influencer, you're in real trouble.
Yeah.
If you're a general, you're in real trouble. If you're a president, you're a prime minister, you're a king, you're a prince of
Right.
any of these places, you're in real trouble. If you're a pope, you're headed to Sheol. Yeah. Arrangements have already been made. They're anticipating your arrival. Yikes. Now, what's different here is God's not saying that the dupes, that they're followers. He didn't say that their followers are going to hell, did he?
No.
He just said the leaders are. God's issue is not with the misled. It's with those who mislead. Such a simple concept, the difference between the two. He spends all of Numbers 15, not all of Numbers 15, but a significant part of Numbers 15, talking about the difference between crimes of omission versus commission.
Mhm.
And those who have been misled, a crime of omission, can be restored. That problem can be resolved. That's the whole purpose of the Adama Parah. He makes it very clear. The bull can resolve crimes of omission, of having been misled. He cannot resolve crimes and guilt of commission, misleading. So even if you were to drag politicians today, all of them, and popes and priests and imams and generals and societal influencers, if you were to bring all of them to me as part of the sacrifice of the Adama Parah, I couldn't help a single one of them.
That's why there's the black chariot.
That's why the white chariot and the dapple chariot. They both bring Yehudim and Goyim that are guilty of being misled versus misleading. And it's a huge part of Numbers 15, which 15, it talks about God's entire solution through time. So it's important for us to know here that he has isolated the leadership. Now, those who have been misled at any other time will simply die. And if you've been misled to the point that you become an anti-Semite and that you're attacking Jews, like the Marxists today, they want to annihilate Israel. Yeah, you're
Doomed.
You're really on that fine line if you were just one of the stupid idiots that's just out there parading and holding up a sign versus a ringleader of the organization, as to whether or not you have crossed that threshold. Because the threshold difference is your soul is destroyed versus your soul is sent to Sheol.
Okay, yeah.
Huge difference between the two. Either no consequence, no reward, no punishment, or eternal separation and incarceration, with one exception. There is a period of time that God's going to choose through those two chariots, the white and the dapple chariot, Goyim and Israelites, that he's going to bring into Israel, that he's going to purge of being wrong and being misled, but not misleading. And so that is what we talked about and what God talked about in this previous statement. Remember, before we got to this one, it was talking about how the Goyim are going to be the workers of the millennial Shabbat, and how that was actually a good thing, not a bad thing for them. Good thing for everybody. Otherwise, it'd be death.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah.
Right. So if you've been someone misled, but you were part of the great jihad, you're either going to die or be sent to Sheol, depending on whether or not you crossed that line between being misled and misleading, and how you treated God's people.
May I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
The people who are taken as workers and during that period of time, will they marry and have children? And if so, what are the children's situation?
We are told that the womb of Israel will open. So we know that the Israelites who are brought in on the white chariot and who are in Israel already and around the Temple Mount, and who have not been so religious or political that they can't be purged, because there's only so much that God's going to do with my sacrifice. He's going to do a lot with it. It's going to be a really good thing. But the fact is that it presents the adulterous woman that is Israel is purged and cleansed again to be betrothed to Dod, and her womb is open. So we know that the Yehudim and the Israelites that make it into the millennial Shabbat are going to conceive children and raise children. And it's over 1,000 years. And I don't think anybody dies over that 1,000 years unless they begin to be rebellious against God, and it's Elijah's job to snuff that in the bud. He will eliminate individual rebellion before it becomes religious, before it becomes viral and spreads to many people, because God doesn't much care about individual guilt, but he cares a lot about collective guilt, which is religion. And so that's going to be Elijah's job. So then, what you asked now is of the Goyim.
Right.
And well, we're told they're going to be the workers of the millennial Shabbat, which is a very good thing for them.
Yes.
There's two things we are not told, and we're actually, I can't say we're not told. I have not seen Yahweh's testimony yet that tells us that the Yehudim who benefit from the sacrifice of the Adam Parah and are the mortals who populate the millennial Shabbat. We have not seen testimony that says that our teaching and guidance for them will provide them with the opportunity for them to become covenant and therefore immortal.
Okay.
Although we have read many things that suggest that they will also ultimately benefit from Dod's sacrifice, because what he did on matzah has far greater capability than what I did.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have misled, you can be cleansed of that by what Dod's sacrifice did on matzah. I have come to the conclusion, and when I've tried to view everything from God's point of view, and we've spent 24 years doing this together, and I'm right probably 95% of the time or more when I take God's point of view and I read something and I just say, the natural response of God as I know him is going to be as follows. And 95% of the time we find the affirmation of that somewhere else, and just unexpectedly, part of something
right out of the blue almost.
Yeah. Right. So my conclusion was that the mortal remnant of Israel will have that opportunity. And that'll be part of the job that we will have going forward as teachers. I can't imagine God not allowing that for that 1,000 years, because 1,000 years is nothing compared to eternity. And what are you going to do with those people at the end of 1,000 years? You're going to truncate their lives. You can't be mortals in the seventh dimension. So what does he do? And so the only intelligent thing is that they can become covenant. Otherwise, why would even God take the time to write the Torah inside of them? So right. I think the answer is, of course. Now you're asking about Goyim. Yeah. Will there be Goyim in the covenant? Absolutely. That's Shabbat has both Goyim and Yehudim. And God's very clear that the path to him, there's one Torah for Goyim and for Yehudim, for Israelites. So we absolutely know that there are Goyim in the covenant. I mean, God's end times guy is a Gur, and a Nakri is a foreigner, and an observant foreigner at that. So absolutely. And I think that once you're in the covenant with Yahweh, your ethnicity doesn't matter anymore. I think God views Dod and all of us as brothers at this point. I don't think ethnicity will matter at that point. I think it does during the mortal remnant period. So then you're dealing with these Gentiles who have the right aptitude and attitude to come in and be the workers. So they are definitely distinguished from Yehudim.
Yes.
Correct? Yes. And God doesn't really have to make a promise to them, because they are differentiated and they're getting the opportunity of a lifetime, because they're not dead. And they're going to enjoy working in the most ideal of all environments. But can they, with your question, have kids?
Yeah.
During this period?
So. Yeah.
And will those children and they have the opportunity to become covenant? So that first part I'm really comfortable speculating on, said absolutely for Yehudim. With the Goyim that make it into the millennial Shabbat, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I were to place my bet, if you will, just on intuition, I'd say probably yes.
Yeah. Well, we've been doing a lot of teaching during that period of time, and we'll be celebrating the Moed Mikra forever. So, I mean, somebody's going to get wind and say, wow.
Yeah. But keep in mind, too, that while the universe is big and God is really big, God's never been big on having a big gathering.
Yeah.
Ever.
I get that. Yeah.
So does God need it? No. It's not necessary for him to be merciful, for him to be consistent with his testimony. If I were a goy, I wouldn't allow my situation to go past Shabbat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not allow it to go past Shabbat if I were a goy. I think you're in a goy. You have a much shorter timeline, and whether or not your last opportunity is this next Shabbat or the one following it, 2026 or 2027, you'd be really foolish to go beyond that. You'd be really foolish to go beyond that if you're a Jew, because 2 out of every 3 are going to die.
Yeah, the odds are not good.
Right, and what are you giving up to be able to spend this interim time with Yahweh in Shamaim?
Right.
And get to live forever.
What
You're not giving up anything, and you're gaining everything, and you're not risking anything. So, I mean, you'd have to be stupid, too, if you're a Jew. But then again, God's really clear. We read it today in the 89th Mizmor, where God is in a transition between, say, my son, man, he is really cool. I just love my son. My son is everything to me. And then, oh, by the way, here's the story of my people, and the rest of my people are not Torah observant. You're not paying any attention. You're totally rebellious. You're not cut into the covenant. And because of all of that, it's a horrible situation for you. And the only reason we're ever going to get back together is because of the time of trouble. And I'm going to call out to you during that time of trouble. So what God's saying is that time of trouble is the only thing that's going to bring Jews back.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And if we could put Sylvia on them, we might.
He would too. Call her.
Yeah, we can put Sylvia on it. Might change.
I give you a private line.
Yeah, but with the 5 of us, or 6 if we count Wookiee over there, 4.5 of 5.5 of us with Rich over there in the cable section. If we were to we continue on, I don't think that we're going to have, based upon everything we've read in the Torah, everything we've read in the prophets, I don't think we have great success with Israelites. And the more I expose what God had to say on X, the more I have people just taking cheap shots and being obnoxious.
Yeah, I don't know how you take it all day.
Whew.
Wow,
I know you come over there, and it's a tough place. It is there are people, I'm sure, that say you've got to have a pretty good ego to say that God spoke of you and gave you this job, until you actually know what the job entails.
Is right.
Oh, by the way.
Oh, by the way, you get bludgeoned to death at the end of the job for a job well done. That's why I'm wearing red. But no, it's a really difficult job. Moshe couldn't do it.
It is.
Really, he couldn't. Yahweh failed at it. Dode failed at it.
Yeah, no, we went away for the last few years.
I'm not in their league, and so, but God says, no, you can't fail at it. And so why I do it is because God made it really clear. You can't give up. You can't fail. You can't stop. You can't let them get to you. When they take a swipe at you, you come right back, and you come back hard, and you come back immediately. You guys have all seen me do it. Every time somebody makes some kind of a stupid statement, come back always and hard and fast.
Yeah.
And that's where we are, because we cannot fail. But realistically, we're not going to succeed significantly with Jews until their backs are against the wall. Mm-hmm. And even then, God's going to cheat. He's going to round up the misfits from land of misfits toys from all over the world and bring them into Jerusalem and say, okay, here's your chance. Now you get to go clean them up.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we succeed, but because there's a big we and us, right? All right. So Sheol,
Before we go on,
and
I wanted to add something going back to what Kirk was talking about with the mortal Gentiles. To my thinking, like I said, we're not told anything specific, but the Torah will still be the Torah, and it will still be in effect. And it does have many parts that speak of the Gentiles that, you know, dwell amongst Yisrael and being able to participate and become as Yisrael. So to me, I don't see why that would not be a thing in the millennial kingdom.
Yeah, I would. The one caveat I would throw at that.
Putting my bet on that.
I'm going to have one caveat to what you've just said. First of all, I think what you just said is astute, and I'm glad you brought it up, and I concur with you. But there is one caveat. I am convinced, and there's no place that says this. It just makes God's logical, and it would be illogical for the Torah that He writes inside of us to be the same Torah that we're reading now.
That's it's
just way too much painful stuff and way too much stuff that just doesn't apply to us anymore. We do not need, as covenant members, for example, to know much about circumcision at this point because we're already an energy-based being.
Right.
And, you know, the fact of the matter is it doesn't really help us to know about how Miriam rebelled against Yahweh or how the spies were miserable and God had to kill all of them. We don't need to know about the story about the golden calf, really, do we?
Yeah, we're living through the story. Yeah.
Right. So what I think is that the Torah that He is writing inside of us is 100% consistent with the story, which is why I think what you just said is true, JB. I don't think there'll be any variation in terms of God's approach in the Torah. And I think He will even warn us about, as a good parent, these are things you ought not do. Don't go and touch the sun. Stars are hot. Don't go inside of a black hole just to see what it's like there. Don't send Kirk, Kevin, inside the black hole to check it out. Don't do that. There's going to be things that he's going to say.
Horizon.
Don't go past the event horizon, and even then you're going to get a real spin. He's going to have, don't do this because it's really dumb for you. You can do it if you want to, but here's the consequence. And he's going to have lots of things that tell you how to operate in 7 dimensions because we're going to need to know that. And how to operate DNA in case you want to create, life. So I think the Torah will be a book that is entirely consistent with God's approach, which means your point, JB, is true. And I think that answers the question that Kirk asked.
What about for the mortal remnant? They're still going to need the Torah to come to know Yahweh, right? That's what
yes, but God can still talk about and celebrate Pesach, Matzah, B'Kodem, Shavuot, Teruah, and Kippurim. He can still say these are the conditions of the covenant. All of that is instruction. But I don't think we need to know that Abraham pimped Sarah out for sheep, do we?
No. Absolutely.
So that's really my point is we don't need to know about the story of the golden calf. So so I just think it's consistent, but written to convey things that are appropriate for the mortal remnant and appropriate for us going forward. I think we're still going to be talking though about, I think Pesach, Matzah, B'Kodem, for example, are eternal.
Yeah.
I think there's actually going to be an eternal celebration of what happens with the Adam of Parah and on Teruah. I think Teruah is a really big deal for God, and I think we're going to be talking about it for a long time.
Hope so.
Yeah, it was it'd be a great show, and I think God's going to continue to celebrate the role of the bull and the ram and the goat. I think he likes the story. So I just see him being a father where he's going to use a similar approach to prepare us for a bigger adventure without telling us about the disappointments of the past.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we need to know the disappointments. I just think we need to have sound advice of this is what you don't do. And I think he's going to do the same thing, which he's going to allow people that he's come to trust and he likes, that are devoted to him, to have a job going forward that is as teacher. I think he likes to delegate and wants us to enjoy being productive in that way. And, if you're thinking about it, wouldn't it be nice if we could all procreate and we could all enjoy?
I've thought about it.
Yeah, our own families, but our own families without the rebellion and the fracture. And plus, as Sylvia has attested, the stuff is... Cuddling is fun.
Prolific.
So I would expect God to say, I'm not going to take away something that's that much fun and beautiful and loving. Why would he take that away? And why would he say that my goal is I want to be the father of a eternal covenant family, and then to say, oh, by the way, you guys can't have a family. You're my family, but you can't have one on your own.
That's a good point.
I think it makes sense that we are also going to be able to enjoy being parents and raising children. And, some of our children are going to be, God's really clear that the covenant family we're responsible for. They're our children. And
part of the best part about having children, I think, I hear anyway, is having grandchildren. Children are tough. They take your time, but the grandchildren are the ones you get to spoil. That's the special stuff. So
yeah. But if you're dealing with the eternity the way that God's going to set it up, I think that you're going to have a much more enjoyable process of kids. I mean, I don't think we're going to be cleaning poopy diapers, for example.
Or potty training.
I don't think there's any potty training involved in this. I just think it's going to be a process that is beyond what we can currently imagine, but that loving relationships will continue to be spectacular, and that we will be able to conceive. And I think this will be also true for the mortal remnant. And I think, JB, I think you're right, both with Goyim and with Israelites going forward, and that there'll be the transition too from mortal to immortal in covenant. That's what makes the most sense. And God does not need to tell us exactly how things are going to be at a time that is beyond the scope that we can operate in.
Yeah. Understand much.
All right. Yeah. So we are speculating here about a time that we cannot yet operate in. Yeah. But it's important for us to let people know this is what you're choosing, should you choose to be part of that, and this is what's going to happen. So you know what's going to happen with the mortal remnant of Goyim, because he told us. What's going to happen to the mortal remnant of Israelites, because he told us. So we have the responsibility of understanding and conveying what he told us.
Yes.
Now, going beyond that threshold and what's going to happen as the millennial Shabbat commences for 1,000 years, we know a lot of things. We're going to continue to celebrate Pesach Matzah Makudim, aren't we? We're going to continue to observe the Shabbat, aren't we? Mm-hmm. We're going to continue to revel in God's name, aren't we? We're going to continue to have utter respect for Dode and what Dode achieved. Mm-hmm. We're going to continue to watch God work through people. We're going to continue to work because God values work, and all the people that have chosen to be part of the covenant family also value working. So, I mean, we know a lot. We know what the conditions are going to be like in Eden. Be no religion, no politics. We're going to be able to converse with animals. It's going to be this great celebration of life. So we know a lot about what's going to happen. Do we know the details? Is there going to be a currency? What kind of houses are we going to be in? Where can we choose to live? How do we, how do we make this transition between 7-dimensional and 3-dimensional when we come to work with the mortal remnant. Where do we get to live? How do we transport between meetings? Who builds the houses? Who powers them? You know, we know who, but how all of that is managed, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's one thing I like about Yahweh is, religion, because they use heaven and hell as carrot and stick, gives you these depictions of glorious heaven and the terrible hell. And with Yahweh, basically, he doesn't tell us a whole lot of any of that, because all he wants us to make the choice based on is heaven is you're with me, hell is you're eternally without me.
Right. And by the way, this is what I'm like. What I'm like is I like people that work with me because I like to work with people. I like to get stuff done. And so we know that heaven isn't sitting around singing songs all day, eating bonbons, and fluttering with wings. It just isn't that sort of thing. God wants us active. He wants us to continue to do things together. But your point is right. He doesn't need to tell us much about what we're going to experience in the 7th dimension, because let's suppose he did. What language would he use? What language would he use? What illustrations would he? Yeah, what illustrations would he use?
You're back to Zechariah describing the chariots that are coming down, or you're back to Yashaya trying to describe this banner that he's seeing, and in words he can't, because I don't know what an LCD screen is. Sorry, whatever the case may be. Yeah,
And if even if you gave me an education on the technology of it, what good would it do?
Right.
It wouldn't be a language to speak of.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to tell you, it's a moving scroll, and it's like what would he say, like 15 feet by 30 feet, whatever it was. It's a moving scroll, and it's above the witnesses, and it's constantly lifted up, and it's exciting to see the stuff you're going to see on it.
Right.
So, I think that it's important for God to not try to bribe us to say, oh, by the way, this is what I'm offering you in heaven. And then, you get to inherit your own planet, and, you get to do this and that and the other thing. No, it's he's let us know what it's like to be with him. Moshe worked at it. Mm-hmm. Dode worked at it. They wrote, they spoke, they learned, they were challenged, they overcame. Why would we expect anything different?
Yeah.
That's part of being trustworthy and reliable.
Right. Yeah. Part of the reason I think that Adam and Yahweh didn't work out all that well is there really was, even though Yahweh said, we're going to work in the garden, I just don't think there was enough to do.
Oh.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that, here we've all been together a long time. And the reason we're still together and still growing and still enjoying this is there's a lot to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So having a lot to do has a real advantage.
Yeah.
Why would that be any different than what we would expect going forward? I like doing.
Mm-hmm.
I want to wake up and have a full day in front of me and be tired at the end of the day and said, we had a productive day today. This is a good thing we did today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that's all part of it. We're quickly approaching our 2-hour show. So I would really feel bad if we didn't get it.
Make it to 10, 14, 10.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring it back up there, Captain with the Cables. Sheol Hell and Shaul Paul, as the least desirable and the most depressing alternative, are anxious in anticipation and indeed excited to summon and meet with you, announcing your arrival. And who are they going to receive? They have been alerted and they're aroused to crush, because it's tremendous pressure. No one escapes the black hole. All of the departed souls, this is Kol Raphaim, all of the departed souls. That means people have died previously, and those who will be taken out during the end of the time of Israel's troubles, all at the same time, which means time for trial, time for recompense, time for resolving all of these issues prior to them being dispatched to hell, because there's a lot of these people aren't going to go straight to hell. So they have been alerted and aroused to crush all of the departed souls of those who have been leaders and rulers of the earth. All. It's going to be really tough. I mean, if you've been a pope, you've been an imam, you've been a priest, you've been a general, you've been a king. Now, I can't say that it categorically. Let's say that you were a political leader in a community, and then you say, I can see God's not fond of politics. I should really get out of this. And you decide to abandon it and become covenant. You have nothing to worry about. If you've been a colonel or a general in the military or an admiral, and you come to embrace the covenant, then it's not held against you. Yeah, you're perfect from God's point of view. So this really speaks of those who were leaders right to the bitter end. This is what they did. They never walked away from these things. And the leaders of every nation and institution, the most powerful and important individuals influencing every society, religiously, militarily, and politically, Kol again, Melech, all of them. And all of these Gentiles have established their thrones and positions of power. And that will be that what they really did is they made their bed in hell.
Yeah.
So the souls of world leaders, whether they claimed religious, political, or military authority, are either currently incarcerated in Sheol, and I don't think that's the case. I think they're destined for arrival there. So I'm not certain that there is anybody currently in Sheol. There's really a possibility there's no one currently in Sheol. There is the possibility that during that 3.5-year intermission that we have between this phase of the job after Shabuah and before we return as to support Elia, the real possibility that we'll do some of it then, and then the last bit of it later. But the fact is, I think that they do get judged, and God is not. There's a handsome. There you are. You were dog-faced there for a while, up there in the upper corner, Kevin. But I think that he wants to process these people and get recompense through people, through his covenant family. So I think he's holding off on sending people to Sheol until such time as they can be processed accordingly. And there's a recompense period where those who have been abused get closure by seeing that those that had tortured them receive sevenfold what they doled out.
And outside of time, that doesn't all have to happen at once. It doesn't have to happen in that 3.5-year period. You have, once you become timeless, you can do that part at any time.
Well, I actually think it's going to happen in that 3.5-year period from an Earth time point of view. It's just that time won't move for us the same way. So of that 3.5-year period, it could seem like 15 minutes for us.
Right. Hustle up and get the work done so we can go have some fun.
That is correct. Yeah, God's not going to, he likes to have, you can tell he likes to have fun. He has a sense of humor and he likes to have fun, and we'll be doing a lot of that. So no, we're not, we're going to get a break during that 3.5-year period. We're going to get an education in that 3.5 period. We're going to do some fun stuff in that 3.5 period. But I do think that it's a natural time. If I were you, that's how I would schedule it. Let's get a lot of that out of the way now.
Right.
Because, you still got a lot of work. 3.5 years is a lot of work to be back down here with Elia talking to irascible people. So we still have a lot of work to do. So we're not really relaxing. We'll take a break, but we're not really, you can't really relax. And then when Dode returns and you got all these newbies, there's there'll be a period of time for afterwards for a number of years where it's going to be tough to relax. There's a lot that needs to be done. And you don't want to have a bunch of souls lost just because you didn't get to teach them fast enough, right? So there will be, but again, when I say this, those of us who are covenant are going to sense time differently.
Mm-hmm.
So we can be Johnny on the spot and be there every moment that we need to be there to do the job and still take a year off.
Yeah.
That's just because time will be something that we can manage. So I am convinced that we can literally have time and enjoy it too, and that we can take a year and oh my God, I'm going to just put my feet in the waves and feel the warmth of the sun and the breeze and just enjoy a long walk on the beach, hand in hand with my wife. I just think that would be lovely with no pressure, and to do so in Yahweh's presence and with Dode, and to not be worried about how fast we have to get back, but know that we're not missing anything because we're experiencing that in a different fold of time.
We will always be right on time.
We will be right on time.
Moving it
always right on time. But I think there will also be a cadence of actual time.
Oh, sure.
I think there will actually be a cadence even when we have the ability to maneuver in time. I think Yahweh's going to establish a cadence of Shabbat and a cadence of the Moed Mikre. So of years and of Shabbat, I think there's going to be a cadence of that. I think he likes schedules.
Jerusalem, okay, is his place. That's his place. Okay. The sun and the moon aren't going anywhere. They're set. So yes, absolutely. If there is a grand meridian time, if you would, for the universe, it runs through Jerusalem.
It does
for sure.
And so I think you're correct. That'll be the timepiece, and it could be the timepiece forevermore. Mm-hmm. That Earth time and Jerusalem will still mark when we schedule our ongoing salute and our celebration, if you will, of Pesach, Matzah, B'Kodem, Shavuot, Teruah, and Kippurim, as well as the cadence of the Shabbat.
Yeah.
Why not? Well, I think that would be great. And then you can still go off and explore the universe and still be a qualified teacher and still be a judge and resolve disputes and oversee the Goyim and what they're doing. I mean, you can do it. I used to say, if you wanted to want to get something done, you give it to the busiest person. Sure. You don't go look for the person that's got nothing going, nothing on the plate. If you want something done, you always give it to the busiest person. But where we're headed towards, we're going to be busy all the time doing what we want to do, while we have all the time we want to not be busy.
To do it in, yeah.
Yeah, it's the best of all worlds, and Yahweh is capable of giving it all to us. So anyway, I think that what we have just read makes this among the most polarizing statements presented by God. The most esteemed will be the first to bow in judgment. They will be incarcerated. Now, this not only affirms that Paul, lied when he wrote that all governments were established by God and should be obeyed in his overture to the Romans, it unravels the entire fabric of human history, does it not?
Yes, sir.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so Paul's looking really bad in his book on the Romans here. But it's consistent with what Yahweh wrote through Shamael, where he gave us the 12 reasons you ought not be political.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there is no getting around this decree, no reprieve for Babylon, for Persia, for Greece, for Rome, for the church, for MAGA, for Marxists. Their leaders are all going to Sheol. And that's all means. So with the parade of tyrants headed to Sheol to meet Shaul, the man who was paramount in establishing the union between religion and government, and who lied regarding God's position on these things, there will be justice And should you question the fairness of this conclusion, read what Paul wrote in the 13th chapter of Romans and then compare it to what God just said. And oh, by the way, he just said this in a chapter devoted to Satan, who possessed Paul. So those who tend to upend the natural order of things, venerating creation over the creator, will not find their diminished status and new accommodations to their liking. But given their preference for alerting reality and for altering reality, I should say, and perhaps now they will, be able to redecorate hell. After all, the most acclaimed real estate developer will be available to expand the presidential wing of hell. Boy, I got a guy on X today that just we had one of the shorts that was talking about how Trump is presented as the real estate magnate, the developer who is measureman. I mean, clearly the job is to measure for the construction of this elaborate shrine to Satan. And the man is copper colored. And he is doing all the measuring for this monstrosity of a building. And so I equated this real estate developer and this copper-colored man who was doing all the measuring for what Satan wanted to build that was going to dwarf all other buildings in the world to Donald Trump. And he said, oh, what a childish, stupid thing to say. How could that be in the Bible? How you couldn't be so imbecilic? I don't know if you guys all saw that. That is no matter what you tell people, how adroitly you're able to interpret things that no one has previously understood, what you get is slapped in the face by the religious. But anyway, he will find that he will also have a nice cell that maybe he can get one right next to the real estate developer who's the copper con. And you would say, why would God have a guy that is, or why would Satan have a guy that is measuring this monstrosity that he's going to build, like a Trump Tower with naming rights? And he picked a guy that he called copper colored to do all of this scheming with him and measuring this gargantuan superstructure, if he wasn't talking about Trump.
And don't forget the flap.
Well, the flap is that's from Daniel.
No, but still,
that is the goat hair is from Daniel. Wheelchair bound with really flashy, gaudy wheels. That's in Daniel as well. The fact he's a real old guy. That's in Daniel. The enormous ego, a maniacal ego. That's in Daniel. The being exceedingly meddling. That's in both Isaiah and in Daniel. Yeah, he's pretty well typed. He's called a sexual pervert in Daniel. Yeah, he's pretty darn well typed. Yeah, he is really well typed. And it even says that he's going to form this alliance with 10 bonehead blowhards, and then he's immediately going to turn on 3 of them. Mm-hmm. Who does that? Well, Trump does that. So, yeah, there's a lot of indications that it is the Donald. So the inmates were overheard chatting with one another regarding this turn of events. And all of them will respond, and they will say to you, have you also become weak and afflicted, riddled with anxiety, similar to us, becoming like the proverb? Yeah, it's going to be really surprising, I think, particularly for the religious. I mean, can you imagine, Allahu Akbar, I kill you, expecting that by raping and killing and torturing and terrorizing Jews, that rather than getting your virgins in paradise, you get Allah in hell. And you're going to say, wait a minute, you're Allah? What in the hell are you doing here? That's essentially what they're saying here. Or, the Christian that is expected to go to heaven because the Jesus saves me. And you find out, wait a minute, Jesus, you're Satan? Nah, come on. No, really? I'm in hell?
If you've read the Quran, you're not going to be surprised to see Allah there. That's where he tends to spend most of his time.
Oh, of course, yeah. If you're
He's just
Muhammad,
not
you
going to be
know
doing
it.
his favorite thing of torturing.
If you're a Muslim and you read the Quran and you find that every mention of Allah, he's in hell torturing people.
Yeah.
And he's never depicted in the brothel teasing them with perpetual virgins. But you're stupid enough to believe that to be a murderer, God's reward for mass murderers is to reward them with boys and girls that are perpetually virgins. And it's boys and girls.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your God's reward. The rivers flow with wine, and yet wine's prohibited on earth. You can have sex with any number of these naked women that are parading around with you, but you can't do that on earth. That would send you to hell. And you're going to believe that is the reward that God is offering those who kill for him and torture for him and steal for him. And that those who don't steal and torture and kill for him, he's going to torture forever in hell. And you can't figure out, wait a minute, that may not be God?
What was your first clue?
What's your first clue? This isn't God. No, do I feel any compassion for these people? No. I mean,
No.
Well, gentlemen, we're at the 2-hour mark. That's probably the proper length for the hour show. It is actually more fun on these shows because we can talk about ideas. We can talk about important things, subjects of the day. We can have a family discussion. We can even have Rich over here and his what a handsome shirt that is there, Rich. With you should have been on the show more. You even have your new microphone over there, don't you?
No, this is the same old one.
Oh, the same old one.
The Rainbow Room's got a new mic.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Rich has brought in 2 more of these Shure mics. I had bought 2, but he has brought 2 more. But his are the super duper versions of the Shure 7Bs. And mine. You see, I have this down here. This is the
Preamp.
A preamp for it. His have the preamp built into them. So we are really going to be set. He's actually got a new computer coming that is specifically to run this show in the studio, so we can do video feeds and do all sorts of special effects with the show. And so we are definitely working in the direction of having a real serious production capability here.
Yeah.
And now, if we could only find a host and some co-hosts that could keep up with the keeper of the cables, would be there. Actually, right. I think we're doing a fine job of a difficult job, and I think in this case is just flat old delighted. There's Leia with the effort. Wookie is still in his jams. But I think, pleased with the effort. I think he knows how difficult a job is, and we hang in there to the end. I think that alone will have God say, okay, you did good. Yeah. So I think we just keep on going the way we are, and God's going to use it the way that he intends, and he's already told us the end result. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing what you can accomplish with unskilled labor.
Is it true? Is it true that time changes on the Shabbat show? I said.
Yes. Yeah. Time changes on the Shabbat show. Indeed. Yep. Well, thank you all for participating. It's lovely to see the artistry behind you guys. You were taunting me with my picture. Sylvia has now heard that she is the decider. It's what's going to happen because, well, she whooped me in the debate. And
I got to live with it.
Yeah, man. I tell you what, I wouldn't argue with her. That would be my. That would be.
We have a term in the South. It's called "yes, ma'am" and "no, ma'am."
Yep. Yeah, she's got character, man. Yeah, she's got intellect. She's remarkable. I like all of those traits. I find endearing. So, and she's got a sense of humor.
Yes, she does.
and a mean streak too, which is also important. You got to have that to be fair, to be moral. She's
Yeah,
got
you know
this
what to love
moral,
and what to hate.
judgmental streak and an exceedingly loving and supportive streak. I think you won the jackpot there, Guy.
I obviously have.
You did.
Yeah.
She's your hood.
If I don't believe it, she'll tell me.
Yeah. Oh, okay, Kirk, you're going to get yourself in trouble. So we're going to sign off. Maybe, thanks for being here. Yeah. Time
Put the
to
clapper down.
close it. All right.
Thanks,
Good
Ray.
night. Good night. Have a wonderful Shabbat, everyone. You can see we do have a good time together. We've been together for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So this is always a good sign of what it's like to be genuine in the covenant family. Good night, one and all. Happy Shabbat.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.